let's go back here to chapter 11. What it talks about here. About the 2 olive trees. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands. Okay? But it only recognizes 2 of the 7. Who are the 2 of the 7 lampstands? You guys are starting to get your answer here as we continue to find out who may be the 2 witnesses. Let's go and find out who the 2 lampstands are. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2. You remember, the 7 lampstands represents the 7 assemblies, right? Remember, John was told to write a letter to the 7 assemblies? Well, there was only 2 that had a favorable outcome with no kind of repercussions for the way they were walking. And they were, one was Smyrna, which is this one here, starting at verse 8 of chapter 2 of Revelation. And the other one is Philadelphia. Exactly. Here it is. Dallas is here. This is the brother or sister. Dallas, are you a brother or a sister? I meant to ask you. By the way, everyone, Dallas was the one who sent me this video, and I checked it out. Brother, okay, Ak. So Aki Dallas. Ak, thank you so much for sharing that video. And again, for those of you who are interested, I will share it with you. And again, I don't agree with everything that this person is saying, but again, who agrees with anyone 100%, right? But what I did get from this passage or this video that Ak Dallas sent to me, and he wanted me to look into this, and he was like, I want you to look into this. And so I looked at it because he overheard the other week where I was talking about I'm not too sure of who the 2 witnesses are, right? Thank you, Yams, for that. That is so beautiful. Thank you. Hold on. I got to drag this puzzle piece here. Okay. Got that. All right. So again, I wanted to share this. And yes, I will there, Ak Joseph. I will send it to any of you. Just make sure that you remind me by sending me an email or direct message me, and I'll be able to do that. But it's because of Dallas that we're having this discussion today. And I would like to thank Yahuwah for sending Dallas into this live stream and to reveal this to me as I can reveal this to you all, as who's the actual one who reveals this to all of us is the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart spirit. So let's continue. So now you see that Smyrna was one of the 2 of the 7 assemblies that did not have a negative connotation to their walk. The other one was Philadelphia in chapter 3, starting at verse 7 to verse 13. Okay? These 2 were the only ones that he spoke highly of, right? But now this is where things also start to get a little different. When we read this in Zechariah, and it talks about the 2 olive trees here in verse 3. It says, and the 2 olive trees are by it. By what? By the lampstand, by the menorah. One at the right side of the menorah and one at the left side of the menorah. Okay? So they're standing between the menorah. Right? And again, at the same time, you have the menorah and these 2 olive trees. The menorah, the seven lampstands represents the assemblies, and then you have these 2 olive trees. Now, what does the 2 olive trees represent? I'm glad you asked. Let's go to Rome, and we're not talking about Rome, Italy. We're talking about the Book of Romans, right? So let's go to the Book of Romans. Book of Romans, and we're going to go to chapter 11. Notice here, we're going to start reading again, Romans chapter 11. And let's start by reading. Now, we're going to go to verse 15. Let me bring this down. For if their casting away, verse 15, is the restoration to favor of the world, what is the acceptance but life from the dead? Now we're talking about Yasharal, that is Israel, okay? And it's talking about the Gentiles. So let's go on, let's keep on reading. Now if the first fruit is set apart, meaning Yasharal, the lump is also. And if the root is set apart, again speaking of the truth, that is the Torah, the law, so are the branches, that is those of us who believe. Remember, we're called the Natsarim. We are the branches, right? And if some of the branches, some of the Natsarim were broken off, And you, being a wild olive tree, have been grafted in among them, and came to share to the root, to share the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Do not boast against the branches, meaning those who have been cut off. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. You shall say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well said. By unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches of this olive tree, may I add, he might not spare you either. See then the kindness and the sharpness of Elohim on those who fell, sharpness, but to those toward you, kindness. If you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also shall be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, let me say that again, if they, meaning Yasharal, some of those of Yasharal, do not continue in unbelief or without faith, they shall be grafted in. For Elohim is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of an olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a righteous olive tree, how much more shall these who are of the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? So now you see that there are two olive trees. One is considered wild, and the other one is considered natural. One is considered the Gentiles, and the other one is considered Yasharal, or Israel. So when we go back to Revelation chapter 11 and we look at these two olive trees, what are we being told? Could it be that it is not Elijah and Enoch, or Elijah and Moses, but that it is you and me and all? Boy, I am getting chills right now. Could it be that it's you and me, the natural DNA of Yasharal, and those who have been adopted in as Gentiles who are no longer Gentiles? For the two shall become one. He shall take the stick. Remember, he calls one Yehuda, the house of Yehuda, and the other one the house of Israel. And the two shall become one in his hand. He says that there's another flock, another fold that is not of this fold that I must go and get. Yes, he's speaking of the Gentiles also. Here it is, the two olive trees, right? The two olive trees are possibly, and I say possibly, and I'm leaning more to it the more I think of it, that it is you and me. So now let's think about what we're going to be able to do. Does scripture bear this out? Does it say that we are the olive trees? Does it say that we are the seven lampstands? Yes, it does. We've just shown both of those. We've just shown you both of those. But let's continue. And if anyone wishes to harm them, meaning you and me, if that is the case, if you and I are the two witnesses, fire comes out from their mouth and consumes their enemies. Is this metaphorical or is this literal? I don't know, but we're going to find out. And if anyone wishes to harm them, he has to be unalived in that way. What is that way? Remember, the Messiah says, he who, unalives with the sword shall be also unalive with the sword. These, meaning these two witnesses, possess authority or power to shut the heaven so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they shall possess authority or power over the waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the Arets, the earth, with all plagues as often as they wish. Notice that, as often as they wish. And when they have ended their witness, when will their witness end? After 1,260 days, right there underlined in red. It says that the beast that is coming up out of the pit of the deep shall fight against them and overcome them and unalive them, and their bodies will lie in the street of that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom, and Mitzrayim, or Egypt, where also our master was impaled, that is Jerusalem. And some of the peoples and the tribes and the tongues, or the languages and the nations, see their dead bodies for 3.5 days. Now you may say, wait a minute, it says 3.5 days. Let me get you to see something, family. It may be that this right here is speaking of a day for a year, prophetical time. 3.5 years. That word days right there, let me show you. Let me show you what it says here. So let me pull this back. I'm going to grab my Strong Concordance. I mean, I can do this on my computer, but I'd rather show you through the Strongs what this is, because I think sometimes just seeing it when we're reading it out of a hard book, that it just makes it come to life even more. I'm reading out of the Strongs Exhaustive Concordance, and we're going to look up the word days. The letter D's right here. So we're going to go to days. And what do you know? I opened up to day, but now we're going to go to days. Okay, and we're looking for that passage out of Revelation, right? So it's going to be one of the last ones. All right. Let's go here. Notice here, see their dead bodies 3 days, right? And it talks about not in the days of their prophecy. See their dead bodies 3 days. And after 3 days and a half. Okay, so this is all in Revelation chapter 11. So we're looking up the word 2250. So we know that this is in Revelation. So we got to go to the Greek portion of Strong's. And we're going to go to 2250. Isn't that what it said? Let me make sure. Yep, 2250. So let's go to 2250. 2250. Okay, so it's going to be in this area. 2250. So let's pull this up. 2250. Here we go. And it is Hey Mira. Hey Mira. Okay, this is it right here. Notice what it says here at the very end. And again, we have all this that it could mean, what it could represent, right? All of this. But it says here, time, day, time, while, and years. You see that? Years. So it can actually mean day, but it can also mean years. Years, family. So let's look at this again from what we just got there, okay? So let's go back to Revelation chapter 11, and let's look at that 3.5 days, which now makes sense. So let me read this now with this understanding. And it says here, starting at verse 7, and when they had ended their witness or prophecy, the beast coming out of the pit, or the bottomless pit, shall fight against them and overcome them and unalive them, and their dead bodies lie in the street of that great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Mitzrayim, or Egypt, where also our master was impaled. And some of the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations see their dead bodies for 3.5 years, and not allowed their dead bodies, to be placed into tombs. Now this makes sense, because before I was like, there is no way that Yah would allow us to be not buried for 3.5 years. It's speaking of what is going to happen during the 3.5 year period, also known as the Great Tribulation, also known as time of Yaakov's trouble, or Jacob's trouble. They're not going to be placing our bodies into the tombs. They're not going to allow us to get a proper burial. They are going to make a spectacle of our bodies. Here it doesn't say anything about them taking off our head, but we know that that's what's going to happen according to Revelation chapter 20. All those who were beheaded for the testimony of Yahusha and keeping the commandments of Elohim. Now it says that this beast from the bottomless pit is going to go against us, and he's going to wage war against us. Where else have we read this? Well, let's read this again in Revelation chapter 13. Notice what it says here, and it's the same amount of time. It says, and they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. Or excuse me, who gave authority, not who they gave authority, but who gave authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to fight with him? And he was given a mouth, speaking great matters and blasphemies, and he was given authority to do so for 42 months. There's that time frame again. 3.5 years, 1,260 days. Okay, and it says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemies against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tent or his tabernacle and those dwelling in the Shama, in the heavens. Now notice verse 7. And it was given to him, who? The beast. It was given to him to fight with the set apart ones. That's you and me. That is supposedly, if this is true, the two witnesses, and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe and tongue or language and nation, and all those dwelling on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the slain Lamb. That is the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world. Okay, shall worship him, meaning the dragon, the anti-Messiah. If anyone has an ear, let them hear. Let them hear. He who brings into captivity shall go into captivity. He who unalives with the sword has to be unalive with the sword. This is what they're going to be doing. They will be smiting the earth with all kinds of plagues as much as they wish. That's what we're reading here. We're just getting more understanding of what we're reading, if this is the case. If this is the case, this is what's going to happen. Okay, and so the beast coming up out of the pit shall fight against them. That is the set apart ones. That is the Kodashim. That is the saints, and overcome them and unalive them. And their bodies will be strewn all over the streets. This is making sense now. This is who is possibly you and me, the two olive trees that are represented standing before Yahuwah in the heavenlies, and the 7 golden lampstands, the menorah, which represents the 7 assemblies. Again, that's you and me. May we be one of the two, Smyrna or Philadelphia. But we know that Smyrna is the one that is going to be unalived because of who they stand for. Let's go there. Let's read that. Revelation chapter 2. Let's read that. And to the messenger or the angel of the assembly of Smyrna write, this says the first and the last, who became unalived and came to life. I know your works, he's speaking to you and me, and pressure and poverty, yet you are rich. And the blasphemy of those who say that they are Yahudim, or that say that they are Jews and are not, but the congregation of Satan. Yours may say synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of them, I add, of what you are about to suffer. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. See, the devil, this is the beast, who came out of the bottomless pit, out of the abyss, is about to throw some of you into prison, concentration camps, FEMA camps, in order to try you. And you shall have pressure, that is tribulation, that is torture, 10 days. Be trustworthy until unaliving, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, here it is again, let him or them hear what the Ruach says to the assemblies. He who overcomes, or she who overcomes, shall by no means be harmed by the second death. That is the lake of fire. Why? Because you have transformed and you have gone from one side to the other. You have went from death unto life. Hallelujah. It seems very evident that we are going to be unalive. Not all of us. Some of us are going to see when he cracks that sky, so that we may be able to see him when he comes to gather his people, the elect from the 4 corners of the earth. But to give you more clues of this, let's go to the book of Daniel. Notice what it says here about what is going to happen to some of us. All these orange parts that you see in my book is talking about the anti-Messiah. Okay, but let's read this. I was thinking about the horns. This is Daniel saying this. Daniel was thinking about the horns. Then saw another horn, a little horn, coming up among them. This little horn is your anti-Messiah. These horns are those that we know as the 10 beasts, okay, that we read about in the book of Revelation. And they shall rule and reign with him for a short time. That's who these horns are. And it says, and coming up among them, among the other 10, 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots before it. So that means he is going to overtake or overpower 3 of these beasts or their kingdoms, okay, their areas, wherever they govern. And see, eyes like the eyes of a man were in this horn, meaning this little one, this little horn. And it says, and a mouth speaking great words, just like what we just read in Revelation chapter 13. He spoke blasphemies against the Most High and about his tabernacle and those who dwell in the Shamaim in the heavens. Same being, same thing. Daniel is seeing exactly what John saw. And it says, and I was looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. Sounds like Revelation chapter 1, doesn't it? His throne was a flame of fire, its wheels burning fire. A stream of fire was flowing and coming forth from his presence. And 1,000 thousands served him, that's you and I. And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. Again, that's you and I. The judge, that is our Messiah, was seated. And the books, plural, were open. This is Judgment Day. Now we go from what we just read here, and Daniel, his mind is back on what he was thinking about, right? So if you was to read verse 8 and go straight to verse 11, it would just flow. It would just flow. Here it goes. So it says, and a mouth was speaking great words. And I was looking then because of the sound of the great words, which the horn, that is the anti-Messiah, was speaking. And I was looking until the beast was unalived, and his body destroyed and given to the burning fire, which is the lake of fire. And the rest of the beasts had their rule taken away, or their power and authority taken away. But a lengthening of life was given to them for a season and a time. Why? Because even though the beast, who is the anti-Messiah, was thrown into the lake of fire along with the false prophet, as we read in Revelation chapter 20, the 10 kings are going to be sitting in jail waiting for Judgment Day. This is why their life was extended a little while for a season and a time, because they're going to be brought up before Judgment Day, which is at the end of chapter 20 of Revelation. Okay, that is the second resurrection. Okay, they weren't part of the first resurrection. They were part of the second resurrection, and then they're going to be part of the second death, which is the lake of fire. But let us continue. So now we're going to go down here. And it says here, verse 21, I was looking, and this horn was fighting against the set apart ones. That's you and me, and was prevailing against them. This is the one who came out of the bottomless pit. This is the same one that we read in Revelation chapter 11, who comes after us, and he unalives us, and the whole world is happy because we were unalived, and they start giving gifts to one another. Let's read it together. And it says here, and it says, that the beast coming up out of the pit of the deep shall fight against them and overcome them and unalive them, just like what we just read in Daniel. And their dead bodies lie in the street of that great city, right? And it says down here in verse 9, and some of the peoples and tribes and tongues, that is different languages and nations, see their dead bodies, that might be you and me, if we are to be unalived this way. And they will see this happening for 3.5 years. I know it says days, but again, I just showed you in the Strong Concordance that this word hemora can also mean years. For 3.5 years, and not allow their dead bodies to be placed in tombs, which is a proper burial. And those dwelling on the earth, that is the non-believers, that is the pagans, that is the heathens, they will rejoice over us and exalt and be happy, and they shall send gifts to one another, because these two prophets, meaning these two houses of people, meaning the Gentiles and those that are of Israel, DNA of both trees, DNA Israel, DNA Gentiles, even though we are one in the Messiah. but we will all be prophesying, meaning that we will all be spreading the great news, meaning that we will be speaking of end time events, meaning that we will be going out there into the highways and byways, and we will be telling them the truth, and they don't want to hear it. They're going to want us to shut our mouths up, just like TikTok and all these other platforms want to shut us down. Do you not see what is getting ready to happen? The precursor is already happening right now amongst us. And he is going to give us the boldness. He is going to give us the power from on high, which is the Ruach HaKodesh. Oh, you guys don't believe me. I'm about to show you. Woo! Let me show you what the scripture says. And it says that, look, they are going to be giving each other gifts because we made their lives so hard that we were torturing them. And it says in verse 11, and after 3.5 years, a spirit of life from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet. This is your first resurrection, family. And great fear fell on all those who saw us resurrect. Think about that. This has to be happening right at the end when the Messiah comes back, that the whole world realizes we done unalive prophets. We have unalived the master's children, the true master, not this fake anti-Messiah that we have followed and took on his mark upon our hand or on our forehead. No, those people were the real people. Just like when they saw the Messiah on the tree and he gave up his spirit. And it says that darkness came across the whole land and a great earthquake happened. Well, notice what it says here. Let's continue to read. And after those 3.5 years, the spirit of life came into them, right? And they all saw us come upon our feet, and they heard a loud voice from the Shama, from the heavens, saying to them, come up here. This is the command for us to be resurrected. Come up here. We go up. And they went up into the Shama, into the heaven, in a cloud, just like what the Messiah says that is going to happen to us, that we're going to come up into the cloud. And their enemies saw them, meaning all those non-believers here on this earth who see us, who they have unalived. They see us literally teleporting up into the sky. And in that hour, there came to be what? A great earthquake. A great earthquake. Now notice what happens. Let's go into the Basora. Let's go into the Brit Hadashah. Okay, let's go to where it talks about what had happened. Let's see here. Notice here in Matthew chapter 27. And it said, verse 30, or verse 50, excuse me. It says here, and Yahusha cried out again with a loud voice and gave up his ruach, gave up his spirit. And see, the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth was shaken. This is an earthquake. And the rocks were split, and the tombs were open, and many bodies of the set apart ones who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the set apart city and appeared to many. And when the captain and those with him who were guarding Yahusha saw the earthquake and all that took place, they feared exceedingly, saying, truly, this was the son of Elohim. This is exactly what they're going to say about us on that day. It is history repeating itself. When they see us standing upon our feet after we've been unalived, going on for 3.5 years, they see our dead bodies coming out of these places because they would not put us into tombs. So they're going to have us into these what? Off on the side of the road, we just become bones? I don't know. Somehow we're going to come back up and they're going to realize that it's us. They're going to realize that it's us. And they're going to be afraid. And in that same hour, there's going to be an earthquake. Same thing would happen when the Messiah was resurrected, or excuse me, when he gave up his spirit. But here we see it's when we're brought back to life that this earthquake happens. And 1/10 of this city falls. And the earthquake, there was about 7,000 people who were unalived. And the rest became afraid and gave esteem to Elohim. But it's too late for them. It's too late. Because they've taken the mark. They've taken the mark. And they worship the beast. We didn't worship the beast, hence why we were unalived, hence why they were all happy and joyful and giving gifts to one another and partying like it's 1999. It is is amazing to see that this is probably what is getting ready to happen. So now, could it be that we're the ones who are going to do all these plagues as often as we wish? Well, let's see what the scripture says. Let's go to the book or the Basora of John. Okay. John chapter 14. What does it say there? 14. So Yohanan, John 14. Look what it says here. Verse 12. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who or she who believes in me, the works that I do, he or she shall do also. And greater works than these shall he or she shall do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I shall do, in order that the Father might be esteemed in the Son. If you ask whatever in my name, that is in Yahushua's name, I shall do it. If you love me, you shall keep my commandments. You shall guard my commandments. This is how it's going to happen, family. We are going to be the ones, if this is the case, we are going to be doing all kinds of wonders, all kinds of signs. I know it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but this was prophetical, that Yah said that this was going to happen. Now let me show you in the Old Testament. Let's go back to the book of Daniel, chapter 11. What does it say here? This is also speaking of the same exact time, okay? Chapter 11 of Daniel. You see it right here, Daniel chapter 11. We're going to start reading from verse 31. Notice this. Let me back up. Let's go to verse 29. At the appointed time, he shall return and go towards the south. This is the anti-Messiah, this he. He shall go towards the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Kittim, that is western lands, shall come against him, that is against this anti-Messiah, and he shall lose heart, or he shall not be as exalted in his heart, right, or what's going on, and shall return in rage, which is in anger against the set apart agreement, the set apart contract, and shall act and shall return and consider those who forsake the set apart contract or the agreement. Notice it says, though, to consider those who forsake the set apart contract. These are the unbelievers. These are the non-believers. And strong ones shall arise from him, meaning from this anti-Messiah, and profane the set-apart place. How is the set-apart place going to be profaned? Because they are going to create the abomination that causes desolation. This is the fake third temple, and the stronghold, and shall take away that which is continual. What's continual? Giving praise and honor to Yahuwah. They're going to tell us we can't do that anymore. They're going to tell us that is unlawful, that is not right. And they shall set up an abomination that's going to lay waste, or the abomination of desolation. And by flatteries, that is by lies, he shall profane those who do wrong against the agreement. That agreement is the marriage agreement, the marriage contract between Yah and his people. But he is going to lie to many people who do wrong against the contract, meaning that they do not believe in the Basora, the great news. These are the non-believers. But, here it is, but the people, that is you and me, who know their mighty one, who know their Elohim, shall be strong and shall act. The ones who know their mighty one, who is Yahuwah, shall be strong and shall act. What is this action? Greater works than these shall you do. There it is right there. You're going to do it. We're going to do it. Notice what verse 33 says. And those are the people who have insight, that will be you and me, shall give understanding to others, to many that need to hear this truth, that need to hear the Basora, the great news. And they, meaning those of the many, shall stumble by sword, because this is the time of the great tribulation, and by flame, that is during testing, by captivity, that is to be locked up in these concentration camps, plundering, that is to take everything that you got, including your children and your women or your husband, for days. That is for 1,260 days, family. That is the great tribulation. And when they stumble, notice this, When they are unalived, that's what the word stumble is here, they shall be helped with a little help. How do we get this little help? By the Ruach HaKodesh. Remember, this is why the Messiah said this, that he will never leave us nor forsake us. I shall not leave you and forsake you as orphans, but I will be with you. I will send you the Comforter, and he shall be with you. He will remind you of everything that I have taught you. He will come in my name. He will show you all the things that I have told you in your remembrance. He will bring it back to your remembrance. This is that little help. This is the Ruach HaKodesh who dwells in you and dwells in me for the day of redemption. That is the token of our faith that we will be resurrected. And it says, but many shall join them, meaning join us by flatteries. That's lies. These are people who will infiltrate our groups, who will infiltrate our camps, who will infiltrate those of us who believe, because they see these signs and miracles that are happening by our hands that Yahuwah is doing through the Ruach HaKodesh who dwells in us. So they were going to be just like Simon the sorcerer, and they're looking at us like puzzled, like, how is this happening? And so they're going to infiltrate us to know what is happening. How is this happening? What is happening? What is this miracle? What is this wonder that is happening? And they're going to go back and snitch on us. They're going to go tell the government. They're going to go tell the beast, I found these people. They are doing signs and wonders in some name, meaning something like Yahusha or something. Just a scenario. And they're going to go and tell about our freedom that we have in the Mashiach. And they're gonna come and they're gonna swoop us up. They're going to find some of us. This is why it says that here is the patience of the saints. Yes, from now on, those who are unalived in the Messiah, in the book of Revelation, we're told that twice in chapter 14. Here is the patience of the set apart ones, of the Kodashim. Why? Because we are not going to take the mark. We are not going to believe in this anti-Messiah. We are not going to believe in the beast and all his lying signs and wonders. No, because we're also doing signs and wonders, just like what happened in the front of, oh, this is coming to me right now. This is just like what happened in the court of Pharaoh in Egypt. When Moses and Aaron, two witnesses, went before Pharaoh, the anti-Messiah, and Yah said to what? To Moses and Aaron, throw down your rod and it will become a snake, a serpent. And what did they do? What did Pharaoh's wise people do? They did the same thing. They dropped their rod and it turned to serpents. But what happened? Moses' rod ate up the serpents of those wise men that was from Pharaoh. We got the king snake, if you will. And we're not talking about Shaitan. We're not talking about Satan. The powers that Yah is going to give us comes directly from him. It's not from us, but you're not going to be able to do it if you're not walking in his commandments, if you're not seeking the Messiah. You can forget about it. This is why those Christians that are out there, they need to understand that they need to be walking in the commandments, just as he walked. We are to walk as our Messiah walked. You want to see these powers at your hands and at your mouth when you speak it, that Yah hears you? Well, then you must follow his commandments. Those who love him will keep his commandments, will guard his commandments. This is why, thank you so much, follows Yah. Thank you so much for those roses. You see this here in Daniel. It's the same thing. Thank you. Thank you for that, Yams I Am. Thank you. And so it says, and some of those who have insight, that would be you and me, those of you who are listening to my voice right now, we are the ones who are going to be teaching others, because they're not here to hear this live cast. They don't know what we're talking about, but you do. You know who the two witnesses are. They don't. If this is the right interpretation. And again, I say if this is the right interpretation. And again, I'm leaning more towards this interpretation than Moses and Elijah, than Elijah and Enoch. The two witnesses are two groups of witnesses. the two olive trees. One is wild and the other one is natural. One was raised by Yah, the other one was not. But now they both know the Messiah. They both know the great news, the Besorah. They both know what they need to do, their mission. They know that they are the laborers that are few, that must go and teach the many, because the harvest is plentiful. They will go out with the power and the authority of the Ruach HaKodesh at their hands and at their mouth. They will speak it, and shall it not come to pass? Yes, it will. They will do it. Shall it not be performed? Yes, it will. Hallelujah. And so it says here, some of us who have this insight, some of us shall also stumble, that is to be unalived. But it is to refine us. It is to cleanse us. It is to make us clean white until the time of the end. Yes, because the end is still for an appointed time, as it says here. So, brothers and sisters, do not lose heart. Be encouraged. Be encouraged, knowing that the day is coming and it will happen very soon. It will happen very soon. When the 144,000 households have been taken away, that is when you and I will act. That is when you and I shall perform those things that has been spoken of right here in Daniel chapter 11, verse 32. Remember this passage. But those people who know their Elohim, know their mighty one, shall be strong, not cowards, not afraid. They shall act. And when we act, my brothers and sisters, the whole world is going to hate us. They're going to be afraid of us. They're not going to know how to deal with us. That's why those alphabet agencies are going to be coming in, and they're going to be trying to figure out joining us through flatteries. They're going to be lying, talking about, oh yes, we believe in Yahusha. They're going to want to get immersed. They're going to want to, give me a copy of the scriptures. They're going to act just like us. They're going to try to be like us. They're going to look like lambs, but they're wolves in sheep clothing. They're going to go back and they're going to tell the government of Shaitan, I found some people. They don't have the mark. And they're calling upon the name that you told us that we're not to call upon. Just like the Pharisees and Sadducees, who told the true believers, do not preach in that name again. Do you see that? That's the synagogue of Satan. Those who call themselves Jews and are not. They are the synagogue. They are the followers. They are the believers of Satan. They are the children of their father, the devil. But you and I are not that. Sure, everything we do is being recorded. Sure, they know everything about you and me. There's nothing, if you have one of these so-called smartphones that have made us dumb, they know more about you than you think. They can turn on that microphone. They can turn on that video anytime they wish. While you're sleeping, they may hear you having a nightmare because they're probably the ones who implanted it in your head, because you got the phone right there on the nightstand and they're zipping it right to your brain. But no, we have nothing to be afraid of, nothing to fear, because he who is with us is greater than he who is in this world. He wants us to be afraid. He wants us to be afraid of death. That's all he got. That's his only weapon, is torture and death. That's it. But guess what? All that is for a time. They can't torture us forever. They can't unalive us forever. There's a day and an hour that Yah is going to resurrect us. And if we are alive at his coming, we shall be changed in a twinkling of an eye. And we will be caught up into the Shama, into the clouds. Just like we read in Revelation chapter 11 about the two witnesses. It is speaking, I believe, about us. That we are those witnesses that are going to be brought up when he says, come up here. The same thing that he said to John at the very beginning of Revelation in chapter 4. We're going to read that here in a second. But notice it says here, and they heard a loud voice meaning those of the world, they heard this loud voice. Why? Because it's the seventh trumpet. The seven trumpets shall sound, and the mystery of Yah shall be revealed at the sounding of the seventh trumpet, at the last trumpet that Shaul, aka Paul, was talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. When they hear that sound, they're going to be afraid. But what we're going to hear is, come up here. The same thing that was said to John in chapter 4. Notice what it says here in chapter 4. After this, I looked and saw a door having been opened in the heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here. Come up here, and I will show you what shall take place after this. And immediately he came to be in the spirit, and saw the throne, singular, not three thrones, one throne set in the heaven, and one sat on the throne. And then he describes the throne and he who sat on the throne. This is what we're going to see. John was symbolically us at this time when he was taken up, which is after the message that is given to the seven assemblies. We are living in the assembly age, as the Christians would say, the church age. The assembly age is for 2,000 years. The assembly was born on the day of Shavuot, aka Pentecost, when Kaffa preached his first sermon, and the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit, indwelled in the believers for the first time. That was the beginning of the body of the Messiah. And so the body of Messiah must go on for 2,000 years. But after the 2,000 years, what is he going to do? Let's go to Hosea. What does it say in Hosea? Hosea chapter 6. Let's read this together. Notice what it says. Hosea chapter 6, verse 1. Come, let us, that's you and me, turn back to Yahuwah. How do we turn back? Keeping his commandments, keeping his laws, keeping his statutes and ordinances, keeping his feast days, keeping his Shabbat. Let us turn back to Yahuwah. For he has torn, but he does heal us. He has stricken, but he binds us up. After 2 days, he shall revive us. There's your resurrection. He shall bring us back to life. On the third day, which is after 2 days, the same day, after 2 days is the third day, he shall raise us up so that we live before him. Hallelujah. There's your resurrection, the first resurrection right there. This is 2 days since Yah left, after he was taken up in the clouds, and the Talmudim, the disciples, the set-apart ones, the Kodashim, was looking up and gazing up into the sky. And what does it say there in the book of Acts? That these angels said to the men of Galilee, why are you staring up into the heavenlies? For the same Yahusha who was taken from you shall come back in the same way. And it said what? They were skipping and a-hopping, leaping for joy, because they know one day it's going to happen to them. They're going to be taken up out of the grave. Yah will revive us. This is a promise. He shall raise us up. This is his promise to those who love him and keeps his commandments and has the testimony of Yahusha in their mouth. You can't just be a New Testament believer and have done away with the Old Testament and say that the law has been done away with. You have deceived yourself. You've allowed Satan to deceive you. You must be an Old and New Testament believer. You have to be. You can't have it any other way. Because to have it any other way, you're going to be tested. As you have air in your lungs and breathe while you're able to breathe right now, or you see the day of Jacob's trouble, aka Great Tribulation, and you run into people like us that says you need to come back to the Messiah. You have to turn back to him. That is repent. What does it mean to repent? To do the first works. That is to keep his laws. Do not be Torah-less. Do not be lawless. You must be lawful. To live without the law is to be lawless. Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 and 22. But Lord, haven't we done mighty works in your name, casting out demons in your name, and fed the homeless and all of them in your name? Depart from me, I never knew you, you lawless one who practiced lawlessness. So will you be one of the two witnesses? I don't know. That's up to you. I don't know. Will you stand? Will you continue? Will you strive to enter into the narrow gate? Will you persevere? Will you endure if that means until death? Only you and Abba knows this. But know that the day is quickening. It is coming. And I've shown you multiple passages that are all speaking about the same thing. None of this is speaking against it, but speaking for it. That we are possibly the two olive trees. It is not Elijah and Enoch or Moses. That it is you and me living in these last days, dealing with what's happening right now in this world as it is approaching us. And while it's approaching us, we better go out and approach it as well, head on, face to face. Face to face. What does it say in Ezekiel? I'm getting another passage here in my mind. Thank you, Abba. Let's read this together.